If you've ever wondered about the most popular combat sport's origin in the world, then you're just right here. We all know boxing to be a well-defined combat sport. In this type of sport, two people will be under the supervision of a referee, and they'll have to throw punches at one another during a predetermined time duration. To kickstart the match, they will have to wear protective gloves and move inside a boxing ring. This type of boxing only permitted the boxers to use just their hands and hit opponents above the waistline. So whether you believe it or not, boxing has existed for ages. If we're to go deep into where boxing started, there is no harm in saying that it dates as far back as human history. As a matter of fact, its earliest documented history goes as far back as 3000 BC in Egypt. That's why we're here. In this video, we will be going deep into the history of boxing, where it originated, and all other details regarding boxing. So keep watching for a quick lesson on the history of boxing and some interesting facts that just might blow your mind. Without wasting more time, let's dive in. Unarguably, boxing is one of the oldest known sports in the world today. It got its inception as an exhausting and brutal spectacle. This sport's history underwent a lot of transformation, especially after it began to gain popularity in ancient Greece, and this was over 2,700 years ago. Boxing used to have a limited set of rules and regulations between two or more individuals born in prehistoric times. The earliest appearance of boxing in history comes from Sumerian artifacts. These artifacts were found in Iraq and originated from the 3rd millennium BCE. Similar relics were also discovered, and they originated from the Mesopotamian nations of Babylonia and Assyria. Let's take you to some historical facts about Sumerian boxing. As earlier stated, ancient Sumeria is the home of the first ever recorded mention of boxing. Many reliefs depicted boxing were found from the 2nd millennium of civilizations. We're talking about 3,500 years ago. Also, the very first picture of a boxing bout was found on Minoan, Crete. This worked then because two men were punching each other with wrapped fists for the first time in the sport. After this event, boxing was eventually acquired by ancient Greece, and since then, it became a well-cherished and developed sport, and people began to enjoy it. It was then introduced as an Olympic sport in the 23rd Olympiad in 688 BC. It was funny back then that boxers used leather thongs to wrap their hands to provide protection. Like today, matches did not have rounds back in those days. On the contrary, fighters used to compete until one of them was extremely defeated or could no longer continue the match. There were no weight divisions, which meant men of all sizes could face anyone, with the naturally larger competitors dominating the game. After this, the traditional boxing stance was introduced, with the lead leg slightly forward and the lead hand semi-extended as a guard. The dominant hand would then be drawn back ready to strike. This comprises the classic boxing stance of today. In addition to boxing, the Olympiad Games also featured combat sports. This sport was under the name of pankration. Mixed boxing and wrestling techniques came with permissible moves like kicking, holds, and locks on the ground. You should understand that boxing didn't really resurface again until the early 16th century in London. The English aristocracy developed a keen interest in recovering the ancient past's knowledge and tradition. In this view, boxing became a means of handling disputes among the rich. In fact, wealthy patrons would support their boxers and put large wagers down on their fights. If you have heard about the word prize fighters, this is exactly where it was coined. Jack Broughton was the reigning champion from 1734 to 1758. He was also the first person to introduce a boxing school. Not only that, but he also assisted in executing the first set of boxing rules. Alright, it is safe to say that he was also the inventor of mufflers, known as the precursors of modern boxing gloves. Broughton had to invite high society gentlemen to make several changes in boxing, from sponsoring fighters to becoming fighters themselves. As boxing moved across the sea in the early 19th century into America, it wasn't really popular then, not until Theodore Roosevelt became an advocate. Roosevelt was a police commissioner, and during his time as commissioner, he would plead with his officers to train in the art of fighting, which was known as ars pugandi. One of the things he believed in was that boxing was a great way to vent out man's animal spirit. Well, this didn't change when he became president either. Roosevelt used to box virtually every day as a way to stay in shape and keep active. Since then, boxing has continued to become more popular with the guidelines put in place to protect fighters. The local sport back then is now something a lot of people now love today. Since you have known the basic history of boxing, let's also get you inclined with some interesting boxing facts. Did you know the official name of boxing is not really boxing? Well, it's called pugilism, which basically means practice and skills of fighting with fists. Did you also know that boxing is fought in two major forms? Well, yes, we have amateurs and professionals. Talking about amateur boxing, this type of boxing became an Olympic sport in 1908, consisting of 3 to 4 rounds. This is entirely different than the 12 rounds in professional boxing. In amateur boxing, scores are accumulated on the number of clean blows struck, regardless of the impact. Also, fighters are dressed in protective headgear, which would help reduce the high risk of a head injury. Blows below the belt, kidney, and anywhere behind the head were strictly forbidden. On the contrary, professional boxing eliminates any form of protective gear. It has a high risk, unlike amateur boxing. Punches are only restricted below the belt, which gives boxers the freedom to fight to the extreme. Today, boxing is an international sport practiced by amateurs, professionals in world championships, and athletes in Olympic and Commonwealth Games. The winner of a boxing match is always decided when the referee determines that one participant is disqualified or resigns from the fight. The winner can also be determined if a boxer is not capable of continuing or when side judges elect a winner through scorecards at the end of a final match. When it comes to professional boxing, a draw is possible if both fighters receive the same number of points at the end of a match. However, referees in Olympic bouts will have to elect a clear winner. Let's talk about the most expensive fight in the history of boxing. The most expensive fight ever in the history of boxing was between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao on May 3, 2015. Floyd won unanimously, and his fee was a whopping $120 million, while Manny received $80 million for the fight. Boxing has come quite a long way since the good old gladiator days. The main goal of boxing then was to literally knock out the other fighter. However, in today's boxing, it is indeed cherished by people of all ages. Boxing is a great sport and an excellent way to get in shape. So if you're looking to improve your health in the best way ever, or you're trying to get in the best shape of your life, then it's best you go for a class at an excellent boxing gym. There are many of these classes, and you can just look for the best one that suits your purpose. And that's it for today on the history of boxing. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.